Thank you. Imagine a place that has no waste whatsoever. In the places that you keep walking, the streets that you're walking up and about in Kampala, in the villages, on the streets, and there is no waste whatsoever. But again, also imagine where when you find waste, you speak out and you're not tampered with or affected in any way that you have spoken. Whether you have spoken in a way that either irks the authorities or is not very pleasant, but the fact that you have spoken. Good morning. Today, this is the 9th edition of the Radical New Bar Live Public Press and Press Engagement, and we are very much welcoming you to the Uganda Law Society Secretariat House. We are reporting by the name Robert Benon Jirua. We are very, very glad to receive you. I am a legal officer who is in charge of litigation. I bring you very warm regards from the Secretariat. We are going to begin the day with the national anthems, and thereafter we shall get into an opening prayer, and thereafter we shall get into welcome remarks from the CEO of the Uganda Law Society, and thereafter we shall hear from the council representative of the Radical New Bar Governing Council, who is in the building, and thereafter we shall get into our various sessions of interaction that is going to trigger mind-boggling discussions that are going to keep us on our feet, and also, as usual, the action-packed discussions lead to a question and answer session that we shall be hearing from both those that are in-house and those that are online. We want to thank the press. We want to thank the members that are joining us from the public, both online and physically present. And we also want to thank everybody who is following us. We are in a Holy Week of Easter. We are in the Holy Week, and today is the Holy Thursday. We would like to send very special regards to all the Christians out there that have been fasting for the past 40 days, having come from a very, very beautiful celebration of Ramadan on Eid al-Fitr. We want to thank our Muslim brothers out there who celebrated with us, and we also want to thank the Lord that has brought us this far, who is going to see us through the remainder of the season coming towards Easter. Thank you so much. We'd like to request you to all stand on your feet and we can take on the national anthems. Thank you.
Ilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tulilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Thank you very much. You can take your seats. We are going to welcome Gloria, who is in the building, to give us an opening prayer so that we can usher the Lord into this building so as to take on with the program that was laid down earlier on. Thank you. Please, Gloria.
Let's humble ourselves for a word of prayer. Lord Father, as we gather before you today, right here where we are, whatever that is going to be discussed by our panelists, Lord, may it be of wisdom, may it benefit all of us who are involved, those online and those who are physically present. Lord Father, as we are in the Holy Week where your Son gave up his life for us, may we be in position to do the same for the rest, so that we can extend mercies, charity to those that need it. Lord Father, please grant us the gift of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, so that in all our actions that we take, it is reflected. In Jesus' name we've prayed. Amen.
Thank you very much, Gloria, for that prayer. We believe the Lord is in this presence. We ask that He gives us the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to engage in meaningful discussions to do with the rule of law. Next up is the welcome remarks from the Chief Executive Officer of the Uganda Law Society, Ms. Christina Wori, who has delegated this noble action to the Head of Department, Professional Development and Members Affairs, Ms. Doreen Atkunda, who is going to lay for us the protocol and also set the ball rolling. Ms. Doreen, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning to all of you, dear guests here present. Thank you, Jura, for that kind introduction. These are opening remarks of our Chief Executive Officer, and I'm reading them verbatim. Our special guests, Mr. Okeria Atiker, if that's the correct pronunciation, thank you. Mr. Ronald Kabuye, the Governing Council of the Uganda Law Society, here with our Acting Secretary, and the rest online, our members, colleagues in the profession, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning to all of you. On behalf of the Uganda Law Society, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this important engagement where we reflect on critical issues that lie in the intersection of human rights, public accountability, and social justice. Rnblive continues to serve as a platform for meaningful dialogue on emerging legal and society issues, and today's discussions speak directly to our shared responsibility to uphold the rule of law and protect the dignity of all persons. Today, we are privileged to host conversations around three major topics. First, we mark the International Day for Zero Waste. The right to a clean and healthy environment is recognized under the Constitution as well as the international law. This right is essential to the enjoyment of other rights, including the rights to health and the right to life. We turn to the critical issue of press freedom. A free and independent press remains one of the cornerstones of our democratic society. During the electoral process, we saw journalists facing assault and violence. Just last week, we witnessed reports of a journalist being abducted. Today's discussion provides an opportunity to interrogate these issues and explore pathways towards strengthening accountability and safeguarding safety of journalists and promoting press freedom. We have also an announcement from our Uganda Law Society Governing Council, which is going to be made. And these topics highlighted above have a common thread, which is the protection of rights and the responsibility of institutions to uphold justice and fairness. As we begin today's session, I encourage all participants to actively engage with our speakers, share ideas, and contribute to the discussions. It is through such dialogue that we generate ideas, strengthen partnerships, and move closer to practical solutions. I wish to extend my sincere appreciation to our speakers for accepting our invitation and taking time to be part of this engagement today. With those remarks, I officially welcome you and wish you fruitful engagements. Thank you. It's Madam Christina Wori. Thank you so much.
I think the CEO deserves a bigger hand clap than that. Also because she's watching you online, so please do not hesitate to know that we are being followed by very many followers online on our different handles, X, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you so much for making time to follow us. We appreciate your time, and we also intend that this will be an engaging discussion. You're all welcome to follow in suit, and also do not hesitate to ask your questions and drop your comments. We are having the communications department very actively online, going to receive your comments so as to make sure the discussion is meaningful and all inclusive. Imagine we have our acting secretary of the Uganda Law Society in the building, and what would it be without having a word from him to welcome you in representation of the governing Radical New Bar Council. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me the Acting Secretary of ULS, Mr. Babu Sali. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Good morning once again. I wish to stand on the protocol observed, and in a special way, I wish to invite all the members of the Uganda Law Society, the members of the public, those following online and physically here, and in a special way, I wish to thank the panelists, to begin with Mr. Okiria, Dr. Juko Area Paul, and Ronald Kabuye, and lastly Mr. Ekongot Geoffrey, for sparing your time and honoring our invite. We do not take the same lightly as the Uganda Law Society, and especially during this time when we see there are several evictions by the roadside, evictions in wetlands and areas that would probably ensure that the environment in no way is affected. Briefly, to take you through the topics of the day, we have the first being a discussion as regards the environmental rights, whereby we are commemorating the International Day of Zero Waste. And then secondly, we are the commemoration of the World Autism Awareness. And we also intend to have a special announcement by the Radical New Bar Governing Council of the Uganda Law Society. Similarly, is an address as regards press freedom being under threat. And lastly, will be a closure of the same by myself. So I wish to invite all of you officially to this 9th session and request that the same is an interactive or more of an interactive session. Thank you all, and I wish to hand over to Jurua to invite the next speaker so that we can beat time. We're already behind schedule. Thank you.
Most obliged. Thank you so much, Mr. Babu. Thank you so much for those words of wisdom and your remarks. They are much welcome. Maybe for us to take note, we are also in the conduct of commemorating the World Autism Awareness Day, which is today, as has been mentioned by Mr. Babu. However, I also want to notify the audience that we extended, as we always do, invitations for the Autism Society Uganda representation to also come and share with us their remarks and also on the day. But we were equally informed that being a day that they are in charge of, they will be running inlet. They are having a function at Katikati grounds, so we've been directly in touch with the CEO who has been communicating to us. But as the day goes by, we shall run the program according to how we shall be having our speakers. Now, we want to begin with the most important for the day, which I had earlier on hinted on as an anecdote at the beginning of the session, in which we were imagining no West in whatsoever situation that we are living. And you know what West has meant, and you know how West has impeded the health of the individuals. And we are relying on our mandate as the Uganda Law Society under Section 3, C and D to ensure that we have access to justice, but also ensure that human rights, democracy, and fairness are met in the rule of law mandate. So this is the Uganda Law Society trying to bring justice closer to the people. So environmental protection is increasingly recognized, as you all know, as a human right, and closely linked to the rights to health, as I just said, life and sustainable development. So poor waste management in all ways, including pollution and environmental degradation, continue to pose serious risks to communities. We have been victims, or at least we have known of something to do with health being messed up with because of waste, and particularly vulnerable populations that are not able, of course, to bear that kind of burden to manage waste. And that, of course, happens very much in the developing areas, but not any other to be left out, including Kampala City. So the commemoration of this day today is something very important for us, because it is a responsibility and it's a call to action for both state and non-state actors. That includes me and you vis-a-vis the state, and that is supposed to help to promote waste management, strengthen enforcement of environmental laws, and encourage sustainable practices at all levels of society. So it calls upon the legal professionals, especially people like us, to remain vigilant in ensuring the environmental rights, and those environmental rights are protected, but also seen to be enforced where it matters most. And ladies and gentlemen, to guide us through this very important discussion, we are very privileged to hear from one of the most experienced speakers who will help us unpack the legal and practical dimensions of environmental responsibility. And we have none other than a Makerere graduate of forestry with a Master of Science in agroforestry. He is very, very passionate about management and conservation of natural resources for community livelihood improvement and adaptation to climate change. He has over 20 years experience in natural resource management, involving project design and management, monitoring, evaluation, learning and reporting, policy formulation, among others. He has managed several projects under the NEMA at national, regional, and international levels. Currently, he serves as the project manager for promoting integrated landscape management approach for conservation of the Mount Elgon ecosystem in eastern Uganda, NEMA. Ladies and gentlemen, with that very summarized CV, please welcome with me Mr. Okiria Ateker.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm actually humbled. He has already introduced me. Those are my names, but maybe some of you would want to know whether I am a Christian or Muslim, because the way he has introduced me, he didn't mention any Islam name or even a Christian name. So for the interest of those who like those names, the other name that I have is James Okiri Ateker. But I usually prefer the two, Okiri Ateker, because I am an African and therefore I don't fancy those names. Now I'm going to take you through not necessarily the legal aspects of waste management or environment management, but what we are doing as a project in the Mount Elgon landscape and how we are implementing the interventions of the project and being mindful about minimizing waste. Because our interventions, what we do generates a lot of waste, and therefore we try as much as possible to minimize the waste that we generate. And the waste that we generate, we are talking about waste in the rural setting and not in the urban waste management that you people may be familiar with since you live in Kampala. For us, we are villagers. Now, the project that we are implementing has a long name, but usually we shorten it as Mount Elgon Project. But it's promoting integrated landscape approaches for conservation of the Mount Elgon ecosystem in eastern Uganda. Now that project is being implemented by the National Environment Management Authority in collaboration with a number of partners at the national and district levels. At the national level, we collaborate with the Ministry of Agriculture. We also collaborate with Ministry of Water and Environment. We have the now defunct National Forest Authority, as you are all aware, that National Forest Authority has been reverted back to the ministry as one of the departments now in the Ministry of Water. Then we also work with the Uganda Wildlife Authority. We work with the International Union for Conservation of Nature, that is IUCN. We also work with agroforestry, the World Agroforestry Center, which in short is called ICRAF. So at the national level, those are the partners that we work with. They always come down on the ground to work with us. Then when you go to the district level, we are found in all the 9 districts in the Mount Elgon landscape. When you start from the Sebei sub-region, we are talking about Bukwo at the extreme, then you come down to Kwen, come down to Kapchorwa. From Kapchorwa, we are in Bulambuli, Sironko, Mbale, Manafa, Bududa, Namisindwa. So those are the districts where we are implementing the project. But also, we do have private sector partners that we work with. The first and foremost is Bugisu Cooperative Union, because as you will hear later, we are working on coffee as one of the flagship crops in the project. Then we also do have Sebei Elgon Cooperative Union. Then we have Kala Mugosi Women Empowerment. We have Bushika Integrated Area Cooperative. We have Mount Elgon Agroforestry Cooperative Center. Then we do have, lastly, we have, yeah, that's all. We have actually 5 private sector partners. So the project is actually being funded by the Global Environment Facility. You may have heard about that, but the money comes through United Nations Environment Program in Nairobi. Then it comes to the National Environment Management Authority for us to implement the activities. Now, the aim of the project is actually to ensure, to enhance food security and also conservation of ecosystems that provide critical goods and services for livelihoods in rural settings. So as you can see, the focus of the project, the main things that we are looking at as a project is promoting sustainable land management practices. And then the other one is restoration of degraded ecosystems. So those are the 2 main areas that I'm going to explain in detail, and how we do try to minimize waste generation during activity implementation. Now, for sustainable land management, we have a number of things that we are doing as a project. We are doing soil conservation. We are also doing nutrient cycling. We are doing resource efficiency. We want to ensure that resources are utilized in the most efficient way. Now, the aim actually, why we do that, is for us to increase productivity, the land productivity in the areas where we are working, but also reducing environmental footprint. We want to make sure that what we do does not actually, cause environmental degradation after we have left. Now, what are the strategies that we do in sustainable land management that we, implement in a way to minimize waste? We have one as soil fertility management and waste recycling. Now, what do we do in this? We actually, instead of, disposing the agricultural waste that is generated, it is again recycled. We decompose it for us to be able to come up with organic manure. So the organic manure then again is taken back to the fields to increase on the productivity, to improve on soil fertility, so as to improve on productivity. So again, instead of, the farmers that we work with buying these chemical fertilizers, we actually generate the compost manure which is used for improving on soil fertility. So in that way, we utilize whatever agricultural waste that is generated in the areas where we work. So we make sure that there is no waste, left behind. Then we also promote conservation agriculture. In here, what we do is we actually emphasize to our farmers that we work with to have minimal tillage or reducing the times of cultivating a field. Now, in that way, we actually leave the soils to regenerate, such that when they are again cultivated after, say, 1 or 2 years, it will have regained, the fertility, and then the yields will be high. Then we're also promoting agroforestry and cover crops. Now, this is important because in some of the agroforestry species are actually legumes, which are nitrogen fixing. Now, we are all aware that nitrogen is one of the elements that is necessary for crop growth. When it is not there in the soil, then you'll definitely not have good yields. But also, when you have trees in the farm, they help in, holding the soils and preventing soil erosion. Because also we promote the cover crops, those crops that actually provide cover for the soils, such that when it's raining, the impact of the raindrops does not actually, disorganize the soil. Because when it is hitting on the ground, it hits with the force, and that force disorganizes the texture of the soils. And now when the runoffs come, the soils will have been loosened, and then they are swept off the topsoil, and that reduces the fertility of the soils. Then we are also promoting water management and resource efficiency. Now, we help our farmers do some bit of rainwater harvesting, particularly in the fields. We help them in digging trenches because we are talking about a mountainous area. Now, the mountainous area is slopy. So we encourage them to dig trenches and also retention ditches for runoff water, so that when the water is coming from up, there is a ditch, a trench, and a retention ditch that will enable water not to really move at a speed that would cause, soil erosion. So that is the other thing that we help our farmers do, because as much as possible, we want to see that the soils are retained in the field and they are able to, provide nutrients for the crops once grown. Then we are also promoting integrated nutrient management. Now here what we are doing is we are combining both organic and inorganic, fertilizers for improved, improved yields in the fields. Then the last thing that we do with our farmers in sustainable land management is crop diversification. Now, crop diversification here, we encourage them as much as possible to grow different crops. Now, that is a survival mechanism. It's like you guys who are employed, you cannot rely on only the salary. You must, if you are to survive, you must have other streams of income for you to be able to survive. Now, in this case also, and in the era of climate change, we know our agriculture is rain-fed agriculture. Now, if you only rely on one crop, if the rains don't come, you find that you'll have a loss. But if you have more than one, when one fails, then you'll be able to get a harvest from the other. So in that case, we are actually cushioning our communities from the effects of climate change. Then maybe I could just say a bit of what are the benefits of really promoting this sustainable land management in the mountain goat landscape? One of them is, as I already alluded, is enhanced soil health. You know, once we have these sustainable land management practices, we actually improve on the health of the soils, and so the soils continue, providing good yields. And then also we do waste mitigation. So, as I said earlier, instead of the agricultural waste just left, in heaps, maybe in homes or in the gardens, we encourage our farmers to actually make this into compost, which again is turned into manure that will be used to improve on soil fertility of the farm. Then the other thing is resilience. We are in the stage of climate change, and we know it is there. Climate change is real. So for our communities to become resilient, we encourage them to have a diversity of sources of livelihoods and also sources of food. So in that way, when they have diversified sources of livelihoods and income, they are able to actually survive during the times when the climate, the climate becomes harsh. Then also the economic gains. When you have a number of crops, there are those that you can use for food, and then the balance you can sell and get some money. And that is how we are managing with our communities in the mountain goat landscape. Then the second aspect that we do as a project is actually restoring degraded ecosystems. Now, as you are aware, with population increase, and we are talking about mountain goat landscape, which has the highest population density in this country. It's about 3% population growth. So it has the highest population density in the country, and therefore, there has been a lot of degradation of ecosystems that we find in the mountain goat landscape. We are talking about forests, we are talking about wetlands, we are talking about riverbanks, we are talking about the hilltops that are fragile. Now, once ecosystems are degraded, then definitely biodiversity will not be there. And when there is no biodiversity, we are talking about a source of livelihoods. Biodiversity is life. If we get rid of biodiversity, then our lives are definitely going to be, our lives are threatened. Because everything that the rural society depends on, like, the herbs, medicinal plants, for them, these are people who cannot afford very expensive medical facilities. In most times, when there are government facilities there's no medicine in them. So the only thing that they rely on is actually the herbs. Now, if the ecosystems that contain these herbs are degraded, then there will be no herbs, and the communities will not have where to fall back to when it comes to the sicknesses. Now, what are we doing in restoring these ecosystems? We encourage our farmers to actually practice what is called passive regeneration. Now, this passive regeneration is actually passive restoration, which is natural regeneration. As I alluded on sustainable land management practices, I said that we encourage them to do minimal or no reduced tillage. Now, once an area has been left for some time, for example, a wetland, if you left a wetland for just 2 years like this, it will revert back to its original position. That is what is called natural regeneration. And once that happens, we see ourselves actually reducing on things that the packaging materials that are used when we operate nursery beds. Because in a nursery bed, when we are producing seeds for planting, for example, we pot them, and we use polythene paper for doing that. Now, when we encourage natural regeneration, we are actually avoiding the use of this polythene paper, which polythene paper, if it is taken in that rural setting, you know, the habit of the communities, they will just throw them, just like that. So what we do as a project is to encourage them to actually allow these ecosystems to naturally regenerate. That's such that we avoid the use of potting seedlings that will be used for afforestation. Then also we try as much as possible to source materials for restoration locally. We don't go out beyond the region to source materials for restoration. And that, for us, helps in reducing the amount of the foreign waste that would come into the landscape and actually, degrade further the landscape. Then we also encourage organic waste for soil rehabilitation. In sustainable land management, I already alluded to this. I talked about composting agricultural waste into organic manure. So even in restoration, we do still encourage the organic waste for us to be able to, grow our trees. These days, we don't say planting of trees. We grow the trees. When you grow a tree, you are able to actually take care of it from the time it is a seedling to when it's a tree, when it becomes a tree. That is what growing means, because you're supposed to take care of it. But when you plant, you will not take care of it, because planting means even the nature plants. The birds can eat a fruit and throw the seed, and the seed germinates. So that is planting. But growing is where you take care of the seedling from when it is still young up to when it becomes a tree, a mature tree. So we do encourage that. Then also we do encourage our communities to use biodegradable materials. We don't, encourage them to use these polythene papers that don't degrade. So we encourage as much as possible for the use of biodegradable materials, even in the nursery beds that we set up. Things like the cardboard or wood, those are the things that we use to encourage them to use for potting. Even banana fiber. Instead of you having a polythene paper for potting, we encourage them to use banana fiber or wood or other materials that do not, those that are actually degrade. Now, what benefits have we realized in promoting this kind of approaches in restoration? We actually see that integrating waste reduction with ecosystem restoration not only reverses habitat loss, but also mitigates climate change. There is climate change mitigation there and improvement of livelihoods. I have already alluded to that in my earlier presentation. So when we restore forests, for example, drylands, those that we have restored, and the wetlands, we actually enhance water quality. That is one of the things that has been a big problem in the Mount Elgon landscape. So in the areas where we are working, we have actually tried as much as possible to encourage communities to plant specifically bamboo at the banks of the rivers. Because bamboo, once it closes, it actually now holds the soils, and the soils will not collapse into the water, thus silting the water. So we have encouraged our communities, they have planted this, and the bamboo has actually done some good work in helping stabilize the riverbanks. And also now the water quality is improving. By the time we shall be leaving that landscape, we shall definitely be leaving the communities with very clear water in their river sources. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I could share that, what we are doing as a project in trying to minimize the waste generation in the Mount Elgon landscape where we are working. So thank you very much for listening to me, and that is it from me. But before I sit down, I came with colleagues. I forgot to introduce them when I just delved into the presentation, and I came with colleagues. They are over there. I'll start with the lady. The lady is Madam Judith Mutenyo. Judith Mutenyo is the Sustainable Land Management Officer. Then I have the gentleman, a fellow forester. We did forestry, and we always try to, we refer to ourselves as foresters. So a fellow forester, a young one at that, because he joined when I think I'd already left so many years, Mr. Michael Mwangale. So Michael Mwangale is the biodiversity officer for the project. So as you can see, what we are doing is what I have just shared with you, and these are the brains that are behind the work that is going on the ground. So thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Tekero. That was a very, very deep session of learning. It's very, very honorable to receive such words of wisdom and lessons to learn. As you are all aware, this is a platform in which we both share information but also learn. And those that are ready to unlearn what they thought they knew, this is the station. This is the place, and this is the Radical New Bar, and we are here under the auspice of rule of law, and rule of law is really about bringing the law down to the people. Miss Judith and Mr. Michael, you're very welcome. For you to be foresters and for us to know that foresters are only cars, you want to try to confuse us. For us, we know foresters as cars, but now you've spoken so much English, now we understand that you're actually foresters, the professional foresters. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity that you have given us to learn. We have picked so many things. It was a brief but yet deep illustration of what you're doing, and the project is very welcome. We have learned quite a number of things, beginning from what you're trying to do, especially minimizing waste management. You're helping to restore degraded ecosystems, and you've given us a very interesting statistic of 3% population growth coming from the eastern side in Mbale, the beautiful hills of Mbale and the mountains. And we also are proud to identify with Mbale because that is where our representative of the Uganda Law Society Radical New Bar Governing Council comes from, Mr. Eddie Nangulu, who is actually watching us online. Remember, this is a hybrid session, and he has always spoken good about that place. I have also been a very privileged individual to do some farming from that side, from Sironko, and also from Bulambuli, and those areas. But what we have always also understood is that place is very, very susceptible to the different climate change effects. And what you're doing, therefore, becomes even more important. So we don't take your presence here lightly. We thank you so much. You have encouraged farmers to practice passive restoration, sustainable land practices, natural regeneration, and encourage organic waste. And instead of saying that we are planting trees, we need to speak better English. We should grow the trees, because that of planting trees, it can be done by anyone. So we are not birds, we are human beings who have the wisdom to do better. The benefits you have identified just for the sake of the members who are watching us, have been very, very, very instrumental because you are mitigating climate change, which of course brings into very, very much perspective our health aspect of protecting and providing health to the members of the Uganda Law Society, but also to the general public, which is derived from the mandate of the Uganda Law Society. So thank you. You are identifying with us. We are grateful. We love you. And thank you for the delegation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the first session. Could you please give them a round of applause? And while we were there, we were joined by the most perpendicular Vice President of the Uganda Law Society, Advocate Anthony Asimwe, who has joined us amidst his very busy schedule. And to that effect, we are also going to continue to recognize the other individuals who I earlier on said we either caught up or we are on the way, but communicated. So we want to recognize as well the presence of the Vice President, of course, is in the building. We have Mr. Ekongot Geoffrey, who is in the building as well, and he is going to be in representation of the Autism Society of Uganda, whose session we are going to get to as soon as we hear from the Vice President, who has a very special announcement in representation of the Radical New Bar Governing Council that he's always practice of the Uganda Law Society, especially on this platform. We're going to welcome the Vice President to speak to us, give us an announcement so as to move forth with the next program. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of Uganda Law Society, Advocate Anthony Asimwe.
Thank you very much, the most perpendicular juror, for always steering us through these Rnblive sessions. Allow me also add my voice to welcome our guests for today. You're welcome to Uganda Law Society House. We don't take your presence for granted, and your being here alone is a testament of collaboration and your willingness to serve humanity, because what we do here is not for our own benefit, but for the good of the general public. At least we do it in exercise of our mandate under the Uganda Law Society Act, because we do have a role to play in as far as protecting the rights of the citizens is concerned. And now, like Robert has said, this is a very special announcement. And as you're aware, the Radical New Bar Governing Council is always working day and night in trying to further our mandate under the Uganda Law Society Act in protecting every citizen, every human being, and as far as their rights are concerned. And I come here on a very interesting note where very, very grave developments are happening in our country and across. And we as the Uganda Law Society, as the Radical New Bar, we felt we need to take action, which is very important and necessary. And I have a press statement to that effect, which I'll read it verbatim. But the title is that this is another fine mess. USA-Uganda dehumanizing deportation agreement, which is since challenged in court. As you're aware, a few months back, we heard of attempts by the Trump government talking about deporting people from the US soil and dump them in any other country that is willing. You may also have followed that some nations rejected this, but our lovely Uganda welcomed this with open arms. And we could have thought it was just news, we could have thought it was just rumor, but I'm here to confirm to you that it's happening. And we can't let this happen under our watch. And this is our press statement, it's dated today, Kampala, Uganda, 2nd April 2026. The Uganda Law Society and East Africa Law Society have learnt about an advanced plot to forcibly remove, that is in the name of deportation, 12 people from the United States and effectively dump them in Uganda through an undignified, harrowing and dehumanizing process that has reduced them to little more than chattel for the benefit of unnamed private interests on either side of the Atlantic. There are specific individuals benefiting from this action in as far as money exchanging hands is concerned. We have been informed that the privately owned aircraft carrying the deportees is or will soon be airborne and will be touching down at Entebbe International Airport today. In fact, as I speak, it could have landed. It could have arrived, because this is information we got yesterday, and intelligence discovered that these people are en route through, rare routes to ensure that they get here. Now, our research indicates that none of the mandated institutions, such as the Directorate of Citizenship and Immigration Control, the Parliament of Uganda, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, have been engaged regarding this matter. Moreover, no policy document or legislation has been promulgated to stipulate the procedures relevant to the transfer of people from one country to another. As you're aware, we have specific institutions that deal with some of these scenarios. We have the laws that govern even relationships with refugees and other people that are brought to another nation. Unfortunately, in this scenario, we have clear information that none of this has been followed. No one has been contacted. Typical of such suspicious arrangements, we have also learned about private contractors who are falling over themselves to cash in on the suffering of fellow human beings, whose crime is to have been arbitrarily deemed as undesirable and as such disposable to the most willing takers, regardless of whatever fate awaits them. And from what I'm saying, from what you're seeing, Uganda is one of those willing takers, benefiting from the suffering of other people. And again, like I said, these are specific individuals, like we're saying, these are private contractors who are not following any due process. And again, we have no idea where these people are being taken, what they're going to be used for, what they're going to do, and exactly who is in charge. And this should interest us as citizens of Uganda, as taxpayers. Now, this development and the attendant illegalities that accompany it are reminiscent of a dark past that the global family of humanity supposedly put behind itself in pursuit of the ideal that every human being is born equal in dignity and rights. In the United States, the militarization of society has given carte blanche, like an open check, to capture democracies in Africa to carry on with despotism unchecked. As African citizens, besides our professional duties as lawyers, this is yet another act of effrontery that places the continent and its people at the bottom of a perceived racial hierarchy that justifies untold suffering, wanton lawlessness, political instability, and perennial mistreatment that are the natural consequences of these kinds of state-sanctioned impunity, the manifestations of which abound in the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, the Congo, and elsewhere in the global south. Yet, as precarious a situation we find ourselves in, we are uplifted by the millions of Americans and Ugandans who have individually and collectively mobilized and organized at various levels and through different institutions to mount formidable pushbacks against rampant autocracy. These millions have marched, protested, published, sang, litigated, ran for elective office, and built social movements in defense of the democratic experiment. It is for this reason that as the Uganda Law Society, as the Radical Nuba, we unreservedly assert our revulsion to this undertaking, which, if not confronted from the get-to-go, will be yet another unchallenged setback in the quest for a just, orderly, and open society. Towards a remedy, we have approached the courts of law in Uganda and in the region seeking bespoke reliefs designed to arrest this patent international illegality. We have since filed a case at the Civil Division, the main application challenging these acts, and also applications seeking injunctive orders to prevent this from happening. And to that end, we urge the media and the public to draw the attention of the national, regional, and continental publics and start discussion on this matter until it is either halted or reversed. Like I said in the beginning, as we are standing here talking, it could be happening. In fact, it is happening. We know these people could have touched soil at Entebbe Airport. And like I've been informed, they have arrived. We do not know the number, we do not know the identities, we do not know where they are going, and they are not being processed through proper channels, which is very dangerous. They are not going through immigration as they should, meaning we cannot even know their identities and what they are likely to do. I mean, they are considered undesirable in another state, yet these are human beings who are being treated as chattels, as, property for exchange of money. Now, our perspective of the matter is broader than the single act of deportation. This is not just a deportation. We view it as but one gust from the ill winds of transnational repression that are blowing across our world, orchestrated, like I said, by the militants, by despots. We therefore invite the Ugandan and African public to interest itself in our modest effort at combating the collusion between the governments in Washington and Kampala and play their respective roles in challenging not just this particular deportation of human beings, but the broader authoritarian project for which such acts are a necessary feature. In the same breath, we implore the national and regional courts to consider our applications with the urgency and seriousness they deserve. Like I said, as of today morning, we filed the necessary court papers. We started with the court process, challenging this activity. And as you are aware, we've been making noise about the willingness of our courts to serve humanity, to deliver justice. And this being an urgent matter, we hope our courts, our judiciary will take keen interest and have these matters fixed and adjudicated upon with the urgency they deserve, because this cannot wait. Like I said, if we've sought an injunctive relief and we know the people are already en route, and then you realize even getting a date for an interim order is a problem, considering we are going to an Easter weekend, you can imagine the impact. It will be as if whatever we're doing, we're wasting time. Yet these institutions are there to provide redress in such scenarios like this one. So we do implore the courts to ensure that this is expedited and we achieve what we're supposed to achieve for a greater good. Over the coming days and weeks, pursuant to our mandate under Section 3D of the Uganda Law Society Act, we will continue updating you about the next steps in this campaign as we assert the sovereign rights of Uganda and the deportees who are enduring inhuman and degrading treatment at the hands of shadowy interests. Like we said, these are individual interests. And unfortunately, as Ugandans, we are not aware of all this that is happening. In the same breath, allow me also thank the East Africa Law Society and its leadership and some of our colleagues and members of the bar who accepted to offer the service to give back society. Particularly, I'll thank our colleague Andrew Karamaji, who is in the house. And as you've heard, information is that these people have actually arrived. They are here in Uganda. And if we cannot get the necessary reliefs to either halt this process or reverse, it will be amiss of us to sit back and relax. So colleagues, that is the important announcement we needed to make as the Radical New Bar. But again, as I add, we still commit to continue fighting these vices, especially in this day and era where we must consider our 4Ds, one of it being demilitarization, because this is really an action that points to that, nothing else. This is Uganda. It does not belong to individuals or specific people. It is our country. These are human beings we are dealing with. They are not chattels. They are not items, and they should be, or they must be treated with dignity. So we must demand accountability. And again, before I forget, allow me to thank the Fourth Estate, because this is where you come in. This is a very important area for us to keep pushing and demanding for answers in the quest for justice. I thank you all. Uganda? Oh, okay. Word by word. You want to help? Allow me to invite our colleague, our member of the Radical New Bar, Andrew Karamaji, to give us the Luganda version of this, because we have the majority of Ugandans who understand that language. Please, Andrew, you can join me and do for us the Luganda version. Thank you. Thank you.
I am ready when you are. Please let me know when you're ready.
They are.
Okay. Mwebale nnyo bannaffe abava mu kitongole ekitunulira ebyempuliziganya era ebyamawulire. Tuzze wano ngaffe ekitongole ekigatta abannamateeka mu Uganda okutegeeza eggwanga awamu ne Ssemazinga wa Africa olwannabe atuguddemu nga ava ku kukolagana okutali mu mateeka okuliwo wakati wa gavumenti eya America awamu ne gavumenti eya Uganda, nga bano bali balina kaweefube gwe balimu amenya amateeka aga Uganda n'ag'ensi yonna, era n'ag'ekitundu kino kye tulimu ekya East Africa ey'omumakati ey'obuvanjuba, nga waliwo abantu be tutamanyiiko mannya oba omuwendo abaggiddwa mu ggwanga lya America, mu luzungu kiyite deportation, naye ng'eno deportation teyise mu mateeka, nga babatadde ku nnyonyi. Tusuze tugoberera ennyonyi eyo era yakatuuka. Abantu bano baleeteddwa, bali ku kisaawe we twogerera, nga ensonga ebaleese wano si ndala yonna wabula kubasuula wano, tetumanyi bibakwatako. Ekitongole ekivunaanyizibwa ku by'entambula oba ku by'abannamawanga aba Uganda, ministry ekwata ku by'amawanga amalala, ne parliament nga tebabuuliddwa ku nsonga eno, era teri kiwandiiko oba tteeka liyisiddwa okukwata ku nsonga eno ey'okuleeta bannamawanga wano betutamanyiiko muwendo, betutamanyi mannya, betutamanyi gye bava, ate ng'engeri gye babaleeseemu ku mawulire ge twafunye nga ngeri evvoola eddembe ly'obuntu. Abantu bano babasibye enjegere, era olugendo lwonna okuva America okutuuka wano bazze babasibye enjegere nga tolina we weekyusiza. Olugendo olwo luwanvu nnyo bano bantu, naye okulaba nti ebitongole ebiteekeddwa okukuuma obuteefuteefu bw'abantu tebufuddeeyo kumanya kikiriwo, era ne bwegatta mu nkola eno emenya amateeka aga Uganda n'amateeka ag'ensi yonna. Kino tetukiraba kintu kiyimiriddewo ng'ekintu ekivudde mu bbanga, wabula tulaba nti bannakyemalira, nga muno njaga kwogera ku bannakyemalira babiri, Donald Trump awamu ne munne General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, bali mu kukwatagana mu kuvvoola eddembe ly'abantu, era ng'eno ensonga y'emu eraga engeri amawanga ge twali tuyigirako demokrasiya ate kati gataddewo enkolagana n'amawanga oba n'abakulembeze bannakyemalira, nga ffe okuggyako ekyokuba nti tuli bannayuganda oba ekyokuggyako nti tuli bannamateeka kitukwatako nti kati enfuga eno nefuga bbi kati lisusse Uganda kati bannakyemalira beeyagala bakola kye baagala si mu America yokka wabula ne wano mu Uganda era ng'embeera eno tugirabye ereeta obuzibu mu mawanga nga mu region eyitibwa Sahel eya West Africa mu Northern Africa era mugenze mulaba ebiriwo mu ggwanga nga Mozambique nga biva mu okwekubaana kuno kwe tulaba wakati wa gavumenti zino ebbiri era weewaawo ffe nga bannamateeka nga twegattidde mu bitongole ebigatta bannamateeka ba Uganda awamu n'abannamateeka aba East Africa tuddukidde kooti eya Uganda era tugenda kuddukira ne kooti endala mu kitundu kino nga twekubira omulanga nga tukubira kooti zino omulanga ziyimirize bunnambiro enkola zino ezitali mu mateeka era ezigenda otuleetera obuzibu obutali bumu era mu nsonga eyo tusaba ab'ebitiibwa abalamuzi ensonga eno bagiwulirize bukubirire era balagirire gavumenti zino enkolagana zino zigibwewo era abantu bano baddizibweyo kubanga tebazze wano mu mateeka wabula kino kimenya eddembe lyabwe era kimenya amateeka ga Uganda si nga Donald Trump bwe yayogera n'atuyita mu luzungu mu kigambo ekitayitika mu kamwa ng'ayogera ku mawanga nga Uganda si kifo mw'oleeta n'osuula buli kyofunye kyoyagala kubanga ffe tuli mawanga agatakulaakulanye era tuvumirira ne kino ekya gavumenti yaffe okukkiriza nti Uganda ye kasasiro w'osuula buli muntu gw'otamanyi gw'otategedde eggwanga lino n'abantu abagibeeramu tulina okuweebwa ekitiibwa nga tetusobola kukkiriza nkola bweti mwebale nnyo.
Thank you, Andrew. Pozi n'okwongerako okwebaza Andrew Karamagina era tutegeddeko nti wadde tugambye nti waliwo ennyonyi etuuse tutegeddeko nti era waliwo group endala ziba planning okuleeta n'ekirala ekyetulina okukaka oba okugezaako okulwanira nti tulina okunoonyereza okulaga nti waliwo endagaano ezaakolebwa naye endagaano zino ffe nga bannayuganda tetuzimanyiiko tetumanyi birimu tetumanyi bazisayininga tetumanyi ffe ng'eggwanga zitugasa ki so era nakyo tusaaba tudimaninga nti endagaano ezo bentegeregana eri wakati wa gavumenti ya Trump n'eyaffe eveeyo teekebwe eri mu bantu tubeere ffe nga bannayuganda tumanyi ki ekiri mu kuba naffe bitukwatako ng'abantu. I'll repeat that in English. Thank you very much, Andrew. You've heard the Luganda version. We've learned that this is the first flight, but there are plans of bringing more people whom we, like we've explained, do not know where they come from, what concerns them. And again, we're also, through intelligence, made to learn that there were some arrangements or agreements that were entered between the Trump government and our government, which the public is not aware of. So we demand that we must know the details of these agreements, because as Ugandans, we must know this. They affect us as Ugandans. It's important that we get to know the details of who are the parties in these agreements, how do they benefit us as Ugandans, as taxpayers, because we deserve this information by virtue of being Ugandan citizens. I thank you all once again, and thank you for listening to me. Yes. Kino kankiddemu nti wadde tugambye nti tugenze mu kooti ogezaako okunoonya obuyambi nti kooti etuyambeko okuyimiriza bino ebintu ebigenda mu maaso twataddeyo omusango ogusaba netteeka yene okusaba okuyimiriza bino ebigenda mu maaso tebakkiriza n'abantu bano okuyingira mu ggwanga kulinnya ku ttaka lyaffe mpaka nga kooti emaze okuwuliriza okusaba kwaffe kye tuyita injunctive reliefs naye obweraliikirivu bwaffe oba tuze tulaba kooti zaffe engeri gye zitwalamu ebintu mpola mpola so n'olwekyo tusaba kooti ziteekemu obwangu okulabika nti eno nsonga enkulu ennyo bagiseeko essira okulabika nti tuziiza kino ekigenda mu maaso era ne tukuba n'omulanga eri abantu bonna bannamawulire bannayuganda bonna ebitongole eby'enjawulo okuvaayo ku nsonga eno okutegeeza ensi yonna ekigenda mu maaso aba wano ab'ebweru ab'emumambuka tulina ne bannayuganda bana babeereeyo wabweru n'abalala abeeyo mu nsi zaabwe kuba kino kitukwatako ffenna si ffe nga balooya oba bannayuganda naye nga buli omu ali wano n'omuntu yena ali eyo kimukakatako okulabika nti ensonga eno ajoogerako mu bujjuvu oba evaayo nnyo ne tugirwanirira ne tulabika nti tugitambuza nnyo okuziyiza bino ebintu ebigenda mu maaso. Is that okay?
O Uganda, may God uphold thee. Just a second for us to reflect and imagine what kind of country Uganda is being taken as. Very slow thinking. It's on purpose because this has been a very heavy message. It was a special announcement, but no one expected what was coming. In light of the fact that we are discussing and celebrating some days, recognizing some people, some vulnerable people, at least for the day of autism awareness, as we are trying to remind Uganda, a third world country, that we can live without waste and save our lives as climate change is happening. This that has just happened is, for a lack of a better word, despicable, very unfortunate, and calls for our country's motto to be recited. Let's remember, for God and my country. We at the Uganda Law Society are at the helm of promoting rule of law. Rule of law is the bedrock of a democracy. We are signatories to international treaties that demand for basics like accountability, access to information, access to everything that we need to know about certain things that involve the country. As we are speaking, like has been said, the aeroplane or the vehicle used for transporting these individuals whose history, knowledge, and information we don't know about are in the country, and no government department can own that activity. So we would like to use this opportunity to send that message. We at the Uganda Law Society, as has been said, have petitioned the High Court Civil Division to have those orders, as have been said by the VP, put into place. We would like to painfully move on back to business. Thank you very much, the Governing Council, in representation by the Vice President, but also we cannot leave the leadership of Isaac K. Semakade, Senior Counsel, the President of the Uganda Law Society, who is at the helm of this organization, whose 4 tenets, namely demilitarization, democratization, decolonization, and digitalization, bring to the fore exactly what we are preaching in light of the mandate that the Uganda Law Society has. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to stop at that. Our session for the Radical New Bar live weekly press and public engagement is action-packed. We leave no stone unturned, and it is our role to bring to the public, to the press, and to the members of the organization everything as it comes. And right now it has just been breaking news about the known individuals coming in from the United States of America that is not explained anywhere, which we have said we are trying as much as possible to handle and get further information. That has been breaking news. But again, more breaking news is that we are in love with the people that identify with autism. We are an inclusive organization, and we don't stop at that. On top of being inclusive, we make sure we either celebrate or at least bring to to the fore the awareness that we have about those living with autism. And of course, that is supposed to mean that whenever these days come forth, we are able to celebrate them with the members of the society, but also with the general public, because that is exactly what we mean by the things that we say in whatever we do. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, we are going to, as I said, welcome another individual who we earlier on said had joined us in the course of the session because of the different arrangements that were being handled and conducted by the Society of Autism Uganda, and that of course is with respect to the commemoration of World Autism Awareness Day, an important occasion that highlights the need for greater understanding, acceptance, and inclusion of persons living with autism. While awareness has grown over the years, many individuals with autism and their families continue to face barriers to education, healthcare, and social participation, including access to justice. These challenges, of course, are not merely social concerns, they are human rights issues that call for a deliberate legal and policy response. And in commemoration of this day, of course, we are providing an opportunity to reflect on how these legal systems, institutions, government departments, and communities just like me and you can better respond to these needs of persons with autism, promote inclusion and have them included in the normal working day life, and combat stigma and discrimination. It also reminds us of the importance of ensuring that the laws and policies relating to these individuals are fully implemented and accessible, and there is nobody better to help us unpack this mystery for those that are not aware, or those that are joining us for the purposes of learning, than the individual that has come forth to help us understand how this day can both be commemorated but also gotten to your minds. We are talking about an advocate, an autism advocate, who happens to be the chairman of the Autism Society of Uganda. Professionally, he is a creative professional with 10 years experience in creative communication, multimedia, graphic design, and web development within the diverse range of business. That is, of course, away from the particular aspect of dealing with autism. But among other creative roles, he is also the CEO at Black Canvas Media, co-founder of Uganda Hip Hop Foundation, and a talent consultant for MTV Base. We're talking about an individual who is rich in talent in various aspects, but today we're going to pick the aspect of autism in as far as the commemoration of the World Autism Awareness Day is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Mr. Ekongot Geoffrey.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. My name is Geoffrey Ekongot. I'm the chairperson of the Autism Society Uganda. Today, as we commemorate the World Autism Day, we celebrate with our flagship event. We were joined today by His Grace Dr. Stephen Kazimba Mugalu, Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, as a distinguished guest. He has made public commitments to support persons living with autism in Kampala and across Uganda. Autism spectrum disorder is a neurodevelopment condition that affects how a person communicates, interacts socially, and processes sensory information and the way they behave. It is called a spectrum because it represents differently in every individual, ranging from those who need significant daily support to those who live independently with minimal assistance. As we commemorate the World Autism Day, the statistics stand at 386,000 according to the last census report, which is about 1 in 120 Ugandans being diagnosed with autism. It is present from early childhood through diagnosis, which usually comes later. It is not caused by parenting,
diet, or vaccines. It is not a disease, and there is no cure. It's a lifelong condition. It is not an intellectual disability, though some persons living with autism may also have intellectual challenges. Males are diagnosed more frequently, though females are increasingly recognized as underdiagnosed. Early identification and support significantly improve outcomes. What autism is not, it is not a spiritual condition or a curse. It is not a result of anything the family did wrong. It's not a barrier to learning, working, or contributing to society when appropriate support is in place. The global prevalence is roughly 1 in 100 children. The numbers are growing, but the systems are not. More families are receiving autism diagnosis than ever before, but the schools, health facilities, trained professionals, and public support structures have not kept pace. Most families still navigate this alone. We would also like to raise a second point about awareness. Uganda does not lack awareness campaigns. What Uganda lacks is early diagnosis pathways, inclusive classrooms, affordable therapy, and employers willing to give young adults living with autism a fair opportunity. We are calling on government to move from awareness to infrastructure. Thirdly, autism is a policy issue, not a charity case. Persons living with autism are rights holders. They are entitled to education, health services, protection, and economic participation under Ugandan law. Under the international instruments Uganda has ratified, we ask that this be reflected in budgets and in teacher training curricula, in health facility protocols, and in employment policy. Autism Society Uganda has outlined 6 priority areas for action this year: early diagnosis, inclusive education, family support, professional training, dignity in public representation, and economic inclusion. We invite government, civil society, the media, the private sector to engage with us on these priorities. To the media present, how you report on autism matters. Language matters in framing. We do not ask you to identify persons living with autism as autistic children. Just say children living with autism, not autistic people, because the framing helps to shape the narrative. Thank you very much.
All right, that was quite brief, but also, as we know, we are always packed with information. And Mr. Geoffrey has helped to summarize the whole arrangement. That is very deep, and I have taken a few notes. I just want to speak a little bit into what you just said. Of course, you have also taught us. Like we said, it is not a very common narrative amongst us, and that is why their cry and call for inclusion is very important, because we are a country of diversities, and it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, how old you are, and what you're either suffering from or vulnerable to. And children living with autism is exactly what he has told us or taught us or requested us to call them, and not necessarily autistic children. And that is very disrespectful, of course, in courts, because you also want, of course, to forgive those that don't know, in as much as ignorance is no defense. It is important that awareness is brought to the fore, and the Ugandan Law Society is helping this, because this is not a spiritual condition for people to think that you were bewitched, as they say. This is a very normal and natural condition that ought actually to be realized, recognized, and brought into the sphere of services within which we can access, because it's also not a barrier to humble living or normal living, and therefore you need to appreciate the families that are going through these conditions in isolation, as he has said, because of course he's coming to us with statistics, and having families go through these conditions in isolation means that they are either not recognized or not recognized enough, and that is something that should be a call out to the members, both physically and those online, and generally the public at large. And he also helped us to appreciate that the awareness, like what we are doing right now, is good enough, but it's not sufficient. There needs to be much more done. And what is very key that he has identified as the 6 areas of priority include, among others, the early diagnosis. It means, of course, from the deliberation that he can tell, we can tell that once diagnosed early at a certain stage, we can either save the children or mitigate the excessive effect without necessarily making the child's life a continued struggle. It's not the worst of lives, because we've all had experiences with different diseases and different conditions that we all know are not things to smile home about, because these are innocent children who deserve the best of life. Amongst others, he has spoken about dignified treatment, economic inclusion, professional training, family involvement, and inclusivity. And I hope I am right on what we have just captured. We are also going to get his write-up and share it with the members, both on our email and the different platforms that we always share whatever happens in these discussions. And of course, that also asks us to send a very, very warm regard to the representation that you have come here to represent the Autism Society Uganda. You're doing very tremendous work. At times, you don't even realize what you're doing until we have these opportunities to share with you and also help us. Of course, there are questions and answers. I know there are some questions that are going to come in on where you sit, how else members can help the society. And what we do as the Uganda Law Society is encourage partnerships. For us, this is an indication of partnerships, and we have access to over 7,000 lawyers, but also we deal with different institutions. We deal with learning institutions. We have presence in universities and secondary schools in form of rule of law clubs, and that for us helps us to walk downwards towards the more than 7,000 advocates to the different younger children. In case we are dealing with children and we have some children living with autism, how else are we going to teach the other colleagues with whom they are in class to interact with them? How can they be respected? How can they make them feel included in the society? And that for us is very important. I must also confess, I have a very good friend with whom I went to secondary school whose child lives with autism. So I am dearly touched by this topic, and I would like very much for the members, given this opportunity that I have to speak to the members, to be called to action. Look out for people that are living, children that are living with autism, and extend a hand. Extend a hand, for God gives those who give more than those who receive. It's better to give than it is to receive. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the Holy Week. It's about speaking about goodness, holiness, and helping those that are vulnerable. We're not saying the children are completely vulnerable. They have a society that represents them and that receives assistance, guidance, and whatever help it is. So please take heed and make sure we are able to live together in a free and democratic world. Ladies and gentlemen, while we were at that, we were joined by a very, very interesting individual who is also in the building. He is Mr. David Nangosi, who also is in representation of the Autism Society, particularly as he is going to be speaking to us even as well in this particular session of children living with autism. And we want to take this opportunity to invite him. He came in the course of the session. As I told you, we have been dealing with different individuals coming in, so you'll excuse us if we did not necessarily prepare the protocol at the beginning. We want to categorically ask that you indulge us, and then we can also welcome the individuals who have come to share with us. And Mr. David Nangosi is a disability rights advocate and a lawyer by profession, who greatly understands the complex array of human rights issues affecting persons with disabilities in Uganda. He is the acting manager, policy and rights at the United National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda, commonly abbreviated as NUDIPU, an umbrella organization for persons with disabilities in Uganda, where he's involved with national strategic advocacy for the implementation of the human rights approach to disability in line with the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. He is currently coordinating a consortium on advancing disability inclusion in planning and budgeting by ministries, departments, and agencies of government, while working with the East Africa Center for Disability, Law and Policy and Uganda Media Women's Association. He's also coordinating a national consortium project on ensuring the establishment of the National Assistance Program for Children with Severe Disabilities, while working together with Uganda Parliamentary Forum for Persons with Disabilities, Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, and Uganda National Action on Physical Disability. As a representative of NUDIPU to the Disability Technical Statistics Committee under the auspices of UBOS, he ensured that autism, this is actually where it now gets interconnected. He ensured that autism is part of the disability categories that appeared in the 2024 National Population and Housing Census. He will enlighten us on behalf of the CEO NUDIPU and on the NUDIPU work and how we should support persons with autism. Ladies and gentlemen, with that very brief background, kindly welcome with me Mr. David Nangosi.
You're most welcome. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much, moderator, for today. To reiterate, my name is David Nangosi. It is a pleasure to speak to you this afternoon, very specifically on persons with disabilities on one hand, and persons with autism on the other hand. Some of the areas that I had planned to talk about have come out from the presentation of the chairperson, Autism Society of Uganda. And that said, I will at some point go very straight to the call for action. But today, with the invitation that we received, we were meant to talk about NUDIPU's advocacy work in pursuance of the rights of persons with disabilities, and also to talk about the practical measures of supporting persons with autism. I would like in a special way to bring you greetings from my Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Esther Chozra, who has not managed to be here with you today because he was participating in the World Autism Day that is still going on, I think at Katikati. And that's where my colleagues seem to have come from. NUDIP, for those of you that do not know about it, in full stands for National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda, and that is the umbrella organization for persons with disabilities in this country. We were birthed on the 14th of November, 1987, before I was born. And yeah, that's before I was born. And we strive to see that there is a just and fair society where persons with disabilities live prosperous and dignified lives. All this, we do it by advocating for the rights of persons with disabilities in a unified voice. And in a unified voice means that we are working together with organizations of persons with disabilities in this country, including but not limited to Autism Society of Uganda. We are situated here on Bukoto Chisas Road. That is where our headquarters are. We work very closely with the different organizations of persons with disabilities, and would like to note that every disability category today has their organization, which helps to champion advocacy for disability inclusion, more so for that particular disability category. As far as the disability categories are concerned, for some of you that are not aware, our legal context clearly defines who a person with disability is, and that is under Schedule 3 of the Persons with Disabilities Act. There are several disability categories that we as a country will recognize, including but not limited to persons with mental disability. And that is where we have intellectual and psychosocial disability, among others. Of course, autism was not brought out clearly therein, but I also know that we have had discussions with the state to making sure that the disability categories that were not enlisted under Schedule 3 of the Persons with Disabilities Act are included, and autism is one of them. So in review, we are going to add those other disability categories. I've had a number of discussions with Dorothy, Nambi, and we are working towards that. We have persons with physical disability. We have persons with visual disability. The law calls it visual disability, but that's where you find persons with visual impairments, the blind, those with low vision. We have persons with hearing impairment, and those comprise the deaf and the hard of hearing. We also have persons with albinism. That's another disability category. We have little persons, also otherwise referred to as persons of short stature. We also have the deaf-blind persons, persons with deaf blindness. That is another disability category. So you realize that those are some of the categories that are defined in the law, but we continue to champion advocacy for other disability categories, including but not limited to persons with autism. It was my key undertaking when I was entrusted by NUDIP to represent the Disability Fraternity on the Disability Statistics Committee by OBOS, to making sure that persons with autism statistics come out. Why? It is because statistics at some point inform policy. And that is going to give us, therefore, the foundation to making sure that persons with autism are clearly defined under the legal context of the Republic of Uganda within the definition of persons with disabilities. I found it important to highlight this as the stepping stone to my presentation for the different lawyers following this to substantiate what amounts to disability in Uganda. And indeed, like my colleague noted, and also like you noted, there are a number of challenges that persons with disabilities face, including persons with autism, the area of education, the area of access to justice. I have been in the justice sector on access to justice in the legal aid for some time, since 2014, supporting on access to justice for persons with disabilities. I am glad that some cases we've been referring them and also working directly with Uganda Law Society. So when Uganda Law Society extends this invitation to NUDIP to make this presentation, we feel so happy. We want to continue engaging with you in discussions like this. As far as our work is concerned, I will summarize, because part of my presentation was what is NUDIP's work. I was meant to paint a picture on the NUDIP's advocacy work for persons with disabilities. Very specifically, we implement. I've prepared a presentation, but I'm speaking of the presentation. Very specifically, I will share this with you. We implement the human rights-based approach to disability. And the human rights-based approach to disability is that is sanctly defined by the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And that, therefore, is our global guiding tool on disability inclusion for other countries, but without leaving out Uganda. All the work that we do as NUDIP has been informed by the human rights-based approach to disability, where we are promoting and protecting the rights of persons with disabilities through the implementation of several projects. We have the project on disability inclusion and planning and budgeting, which I am spearheading. And so far, we have noted that from 2019 up to 2023, disability inclusion in plans and budgets is at 35% by ministries, departments, and agencies. And that's informed by the desk review report that NUDIP conducted together with East Africa Center for Disability Law and Policy, Uganda Media Women Association, guided or rather supported by Equal Opportunities Commission. What he talked about in the 6 areas are very, very straight to the point. We are not doing well as a country when it comes to disability inclusion in planning and budgeting. And part of our work has been to advance the advocacy agenda on disability inclusion, planning and budgeting, and we have registered some strides. Yesterday, we appeared before the Education Committee of Parliament talking about the same at 2 p.m. We also appeared before the Gender Committee of Parliament talking about disability inclusion in plans and budgets. But in one way and the other, some of our efforts have registered strides. Yesterday, we finally got confirmation from the Gender Committee that the initial funding of 15.6 billion that we have been advocating now for 3 years down the road towards supporting families of children with severe disabilities, including children with autism, has finally been put in the budget of the Gender Committee. And that is a key milestone to me as someone that is spearheading that intervention for some time. That is going to support the different children with severe disabilities across the country. It is going to be a monthly transfer of 100,000. It's not so much, but for the beginning, it can cause a change in the lives of these children with disabilities, children with severe disabilities. We have other work that we've been doing in the area of economic empowerment, where we are mobilizing participants across the country to be in savings groups. We've been doing a lot of work in the area of health, where we've advanced a lot of disability inclusion advocacy agenda to making sure that the orthopedic workshops across the country are revitalized to making sure that these benefit persons with disabilities, including me, because that is where we get adjustable shoes like the one I'm putting on. That is where we get the assistive devices like the walking sticks, the artificial legs, among others. In the orthopedic workshops today, the situation is not good because they are ill-equipped, and that's part of the agenda that we're pushing. And when we reviewed the ministerial policy statement for Ministry of Health, we still noted that there is little we noted that there is more that should be prioritized in that area. So I've been doing a lot of human rights approach to disability with the implementation of a number of activities through different projects as a result of the support from the different partners. I wish to, however, emphasize that this disability that I'm talking about currently amounts to 13.2% of the total population. Persons with disabilities currently comprise 13.2% of the total population in Uganda. And when you look at the statistics that we got from Uganda Bureau of Statistics, persons with autism comprise 168,211. He talked about the global picture on persons with autism, but the national picture, persons with autism stand at 168,211. And that's a big number. And like he noted, I agree with him. I noted, since he talked of, the numbers are growing, but systems are not. With all due respect, I entirely agree with him. Disability is keeping on evolving from time to time, because the Convention on the Rights of Persons tells us that disability is an evolving concept. People are getting accidents. There's a lot of, you remember, I think it was yesterday or the other day, the ED for Tabika Hospital was presenting before the Committee of Parliament and was talking about increasing the number of mental health cases, and more so in the area of children. With that, disability is increasing day by day, and all of us are candidates to disability. When I'm training on disability inclusion, that's what I highly emphasize. Even after here, you can get a disability, but I pray you should not. So the membership to the club of disability is widening every day because of the different causes. And that of autism, it is also the same thing. As far as the call to action is concerned, which is the last area. For my presentation, I look at how we should support persons with autism in communities, how we should support persons with autism in different institutions. But first, promotion of education and destigmatization is very critical. There is a lot of negative attitude towards persons with disabilities, including persons with autism. When Barack Obama once said, attitude counts, but makes a big difference. For us in the disability fraternity, attitude is one of the biggest challenges that we face because it has limited us to a number of opportunities, including in education, like he talked about, including in employment. Attitude has limited us a number of opportunities, including on infrastructure. The same happens with persons with autism. And therefore, we need to enhance promotion and destigmatization in that area. We also should create sensory-friendly environments. We need to have community spaces, places of worship, the local events, among others, to designate what we call quiet zones, where persons with autism Children with autism, among others, could retreat if they experience sensory overload. In a room like this, if you are engaging with persons with autism, if you are engaging with children with autism, there is need to create quiet zones, maybe like in that corner, where persons with autism can as well be supported, maybe by resting. That should be a quiet zone to enable them recuperate. There is a lot of reasonable accommodation as a concept to every disability category, but that is for another day. We need to foster peer support networks, encouraging the formation of local support groups of parents and families of children with autism. This, in one way and the other, will help to reduce isolation. It will embrace support to one another, but it will also build community resilience. And that is what we mean when it comes to disability inclusion for persons with autism. And lastly, in the area of institutions, how should institutions support persons with autism, support institutions with autism? We need to implement a clear and direct communication with persons with autism, with children with autism. How should this look like? Institutions should train their staff to communicate clearly, and that means that we should avoid overly abstract language. We should have clear written instructions alongside the verbal ones. This disability category requires you to be clear. It requires you to be very clear. All that can happen if we embrace continuous awareness raising at the institutional level. Actually, even here at Uganda Law Society, we are also supposed to have a training on disability inclusion with the work that we do when it comes to offering of pro bono services. Are lawyers aware in the provision of legal aid to persons with disabilities? And that's the angle that NUDIPO comes on board. Providing reasonable accommodation is another one. In schools, this means developing individualized education programs that cater to children with specific learning style, like children with albinism. And this is what we are enlightening the Educational Committee of Parliament yesterday at 2 p.m. We told them, look here, even the additional 30 minutes that you're giving is not enough. There is a lot that they learned that they committed to put to action. Focusing on strength in hiring and evaluation is also another aspect. We're talking about disability inclusive employment. But person with autism is a disability category because it is associated with a lot of myths and negative attitude. It is not easy for them to get employed. And once an employer discovers at some point, will work towards making you exit slowly because of the challenges that you are facing that he or she thinks cannot manage. How should we address this? We need to implement Section 9, subsection 6 of the Person with Disabilities Act, which talks about the establishment of disability employment quotas that would guarantee disability inclusive employment by persons with disabilities in different ministries, departments, and agencies. And lastly is ensuring accessible health care. Ensuring accessible health care. The healthcare providers must be trained to understand the sensory and communication needs of persons with autism. I think 2 weeks ago, I had some training with Ministry of Health staff on disability inclusion, where most of them testified while I was training them to not be supporting these different categories of persons with disabilities because of lack of knowledge on how to support them. I conclude that true inclusion, in light of all this, the true inclusion that I'm talking about today, in summary, and more so for persons with autism. The true inclusion for children with autism means moving beyond mere awareness to active acceptance and accommodation. It involves moving beyond mere awareness to active acceptance and accommodation. That means we need to accept this person with autism, these children with autism in our society as persons with disabilities. Because a person with disability is first a human being, and his disability comes next. But we should not look at them with disability first and then the person at second. No, that's absolutely wrong. We therefore should adapt our environments to fit the needs of persons with autism, children with autism in schools, rather than expecting them to constantly adapt to a world that was not built for them. None of us expects along the way that should get disability. None of us expects along the way that should be disabled. But as a result of the circumstances, we found ourselves there, as I also found myself there when I was in P1, having suffered from osteomyelitis. And that has made me be with my physical disability today, which has in one way and the other made me so proud. Because in spite of my disability, I have made it to the best of my level of knowledge to make the best use of it. And that means that disability is not inability. Let's continue to embrace and support persons with disabilities, including persons with autism. I thank you.
Wow, that was so deep. Today is going to be a very big take home for all of us. For all the different categories of discussions that we've had, the deliberations have been so deep that each of them is equally important. Nothing can be taken lightly. Council, thank you so much. I just want to applaud you. I want to applaud you for the very many different battles that you've been fighting. First, individually as I don't know how to say it, disabled. I hope it's not disrespectful, because now we need to be treading cautiously. You don't want to disrespect somebody who knows how they are termed as. As a person with disability, thank you so much for the battles you've been fighting and you continue to fight. Thank you so much for the representation that you're offering. Thank you so much for standing tall, even when it is hard to do it individually. And as the Ugandan Law Society, I may not be having the shoes enough to offer you gratitude. Nonetheless, in my own mandate as an individual, I thank you so much. We receive the gratitude from the CEO, who you say you're representing. He also whispered to me that the elections are coming very soon. Is that true? Yes? We connected the elections on 2nd of February. Okay, this year. Congratulations to the new team. We appreciate, and we know you said you had shared the link. They are following us. Also, the fact that Nudipu is older than you means a lot to show how inclusive Nudipu is. As Mr. Ateker is seeing you as his son, it also means that they are excusing us to come and take positions. So thank you so much, Nudipu, for availing positions for these young soldiers to continue fighting. You have actually given us so much more. The chairperson of the Autism Society Uganda kindly requested to be excused. He had, of course, other engagements, like we told you before. They have a very busy day. They stole a few minutes for us, which of course we don't take for granted. We thank them so much for giving us the opportunity. He excused himself, but through our permission. So thank you so much, Autism Society Uganda, as well as you're following us. We know you're engaged, but we appreciate that. Thank you so much, Council, for these statistics. You've given us very threatening statistics which are not very good to take home. 13.2% of our total population is of people living with disability. 168,211 is a very deep number with people living with autism. I beg to be corrected if I am not. And that already means that we are dealing with a very big number. 162,211 is a very big number, and we are not going to stop at that. What you have done brings an intersection of Nodipu, an intersection of Autism Society Uganda and the Uganda Law Society to fight for one cause, and that particularly is the children living with autism. Wherever you've gone, we thank you and thank God for the favor that you have received from the Education Committee of Parliament. We thank God for the favor that you received before the Gender Committee of Parliament, and we want to applaud you and the team that continues to represent people living with disability upon the 15.6 billion that has been put into budget for purposes of allocation to families with people living with disability. Is that right? For children living with severe disability, they're going to be receiving 100,000 as it is. Might not be so much, but we all know how far a person with living with severe disability will be helped to come through. And of course, we cannot leave this discussion without mentioning how to support the families or children or people living with either disability or severe disability, because that, at the end of the day, is the call to action that asks of all of us individuals, the press, the public, the lawyers, and individuals, without necessarily pointing one or two fingers. How can we support your neighbor who is living or has a child living with that particular disability, that is autism? And we are talking about promoting of education against stigmatization. We all know how very uneasy a child will be who is, of course, looked at as somebody different from the society, and that, of course, has a very rough effect on the psychology of the child, especially as we say children are innocent and they deserve every good aspect of life that comes to them. So if they are going to be challenged with a condition, it is only right that we have them included. Changing the attitude against children living with autism to imagine that they are people coming from another planet is very, disrespectful and very inhumane. It is a call to us, being a country that follows God, as the motto says, for God and my country. We are also in a Holy Week, I keep reminding us. So let the Lord touch you. May you continue to walk with the verse that comes from the book of Ephesians chapter 4 verses 16, that we should be binded together as a family so as to hold each other's hands. And that for us has been a very important message. The aspect of creating friendly environments, local events and quiet zones for those children, for them to feel loved, for them to feel to be in a place that they are included, as well as implementing a clear communication with the children. They should always be reminded that they are strong, they are able, and this condition has nothing to do with them, because the Lord Jesus Christ, of course, has His will in their lives for them. And that, of course, is supposed to be an encouragement, as well as training on disability inclusion. That, of course, also means that it is important for us, especially organizations like ours that have the ability, the platform, and the audience, and the authority to bring together, convene such very educated and willing individuals to share our own awareness, that all this information can reach out to the people. So we need to be training individuals. We shall also, of course, make a call to the Uganda Law Society through the CLE trainings to also have such kind of topics within our calendar, so that those that are living with disability, he is a lawyer, of course, and imagine if he's going to be speaking to all the lawyers out there, the opportunities that come with talking to the lawyers, and also opportunities that lawyers get to represent some of these individuals. Sometimes, of course, we know they are vulnerable, so they cannot be in position to come to get justice. This inclusion, as the parting shot, he said, goes beyond mere awareness, but rather more active acceptance and accommodation. What a way to close his remarks, having been given the opportunity to speak about Nudipu, and especially Nudipu's role it plays in particularly fighting for children living with autism. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to around the close of our function. We have one more session that is going to be taken through by an individual who is already in the building. We had a very action-oriented session. We also know that we have other things to do, but we thank you so much for keeping close to us. And our final discussion is something that is not new to us, because as you have seen, where there is democracy, surely there is no perfect state. There is always going to be challenges. There's always going to be one or two disturbances to people's democracy. And the rule of law, the bedrock of a democracy, of course, brings to the fore such kind of atrocities or challenges that we have. And our final discussion turns to the very critical issue, as we are all aware of, press freedom under threat, the legal boundaries and remedies. We all remember, especially for the lawyers, the ghost from the case of Charles Onyango Bo and Andrew Menda, in which freedom of press was critically discussed by the Supreme Court. But of course, we cannot say that everything was turned, and we can no longer have these challenges. A free and independent press is very functional, or rather is very essential to the functioning of any democratic society, like we all know. And of course, we have journalists who are there to serve as watchdogs, ensuring transparency, accountability, and the free flow of information. However, recent developments have highlighted growing concerns around restrictions on media freedom, threats to journalists' safety, and the misuse of legal processes to silence or intimidate members of the press. And remember, the press, the fourth estate, is a very, very, very core partner in any democracy. We shall all bear me witness. And recently, over the weekend, the nation was shocked by the news of the abduction of Digitalk media journalist Mr. Anthony Arnold Mukose, who we hosted very recently at our 7th Radical New Bar live session, where he spoke as a third petitioner in the Computer Misuse Amendment Act petition before the Constitutional Court, which of course we all know was declared null and void for various reasons. And the topic at that time was very hot. It of course raised so many eyebrows, but of course it was a victory in as far as being a check and balance for the government was concerned. Now, this topic concerns all of us as Ugandans to reflect on the responsibility of institutions to uphold constitutional guarantees relating to freedom of expression and access to information, because I said at the beginning there was an anecdote that I began with. Imagine there is no West in the country, but if there is no West and anybody, or if there is West and anybody speaks about it and that person is brought to book for merely speaking about the West or the government departments that are not supportive of the drives that are continuing, when else are we going to be protected? When are the journalists going to be protected? And all of us are journalists if you come to understand by meaning of access to information, because wherever you are supposed to be informing the country or members of the community about anything that is happening. So as we are coming to the end of the session today, we are going to be listening into our last speaker, who is going to guide us through this timely discussion. And of course, we're going to be shedding light on the violations faced by journalists and the pathways towards strengthening accountability and safeguarding media freedom. And there's none other than a journalist with Metro FM 90.8 and an online news site called Trusted News Uganda. We are going to see if we are going to trust him with the information he's going to give us, because he is a public relations officer, so you can imagine he speaks very well. And he's also the spokesperson of Uganda Journalists Association. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Mr. Ronald Kabuye.
It is an honor. Good afternoon to you all. I am Ronald Kabuye, as stated, and I'm a journalist. I am the public relations officer of Uganda Journalists Association, UJA. I'm happy and honored to be here today to speak about our press freedom. A number of events have happened where journalists have been suppressed, and we believe suppressing the freedom of speech and expression is everyone is concerned, because it concerns all of us. Before, it was all about the mainstream giving out information and relaying information. So we would wait for the news, we would tune in and listen to the radios and TV station, watch TV stations, read newspapers, so that we can get information. Apparently, we are seeing a lot of citizen journalism. You know, social media, digital media, where information keeps flowing. You don't need to wait until evening to watch the news, or until tomorrow to read the newspapers. So it means that the landscape has changed. The journalism landscape has changed. Unfortunately, all has not been well. It has come with a cost, whereby journalists are suppressed. You see, suppressing journalism and free media or independent media is killing a country. You know, if the country cannot know what is happening, the services that are happening in the government institution, the happenings in private sector, I mean, now, how will they be informed and what will they have to do? Actually, I think that brings about the reason why we are called the fourth estate, because we inform and we bridge the gap, between governments, private sector, and the ordinary person or Ugandan. On Sunday, to start with, Mukosi Arnold Anthony, a journalist with Big Talk Media, was hosted on a radio where I work also. He was hosted to speak about the nullification of where the Computer Misuse Act that was nullified by the Constitutional Court. Shortly after he appeared, after the radio talk show, he was rounded off at the main gate of the radio station at Martin Road. Of course, rounding off doesn't just come with just rounding off. You get some beatings. He was beaten and then abandoned into a waiting a Toyota Noah, and they speed off. So it left all of us worried and concerned where he would be. And the persons who have abducted him, because they didn't even identify themselves to know that, they are security officers, maybe they have a warrant of arrest, they summoned him and he absconded, he didn't appear. There was nothing like that. And so we started the hunt. Unfortunately, after some hours, we get to know that he has been taken to Old Kampala police station, where he was taken again to do a search at his home in Lukuli, Nanganda, and then after, he was taken back at Old Kampala police station Fortunately, they gave him a chance to call his lawyer, and Mr. Kato Tomusime witnessed the search. He was there. But in the night of Sunday, he was again moved to unknown detention center. So in the morning, as we went there, we were inquiring, and we wanted to see him. The officers at the station told us that we don't know where he is. We don't know. He was moved in the night. There's no record here. He was just moved. There is no record. So we don't know where he is. And we were, because we were puzzled, we tried to ask the police spokespersons, and everyone was saying, no, I'm engaged in this, I don't know about that, maybe let me inquire and they get back, I also don't know. And so we are in that mess. Yesterday, he was charged formally, but before he's being charged, I had a talk with him, and he told me he was taken to a basement of Mulago police station. Very cold. And he was not allowed to make any call. So, all the police were saying, we have him, but they could not tell us where he is. Well, their action actually is similar to that of criminals. Surely, if you come and abduct, how can we differentiate you from the criminals that we see every day? It is unfortunate. We are not saying that we are angels. No, we are not saying that journalists are angels. We make mistakes, and we also know. But I think it is rather better if you summon me, if you follow the rule of law, if you follow the law, summon me, or come, get a warrant of arrest, come and identify yourself, and then you take me, rather than just abducting a person. So yesterday he was charged with 2 counts. One is publishing false news that the First Lady is dead. Another is sending a distress message that the First Lady is dead. But Council has been talking about the Charles Onyango Bo case. The first count that he was charged with is no longer in the laws of this country, because the Supreme Court through that very case of Charles Onyango Bo, Andrew Mwenda, and versus the Attorney General, it actually says that it violates Article 29 of the Constitution that speaks to the freedom of press, freedom of expression and press. So, the court, in its wisdom, that is the Supreme Court, found that prohibition of false news served no meaningful purpose. And it actually stated that freedom of expression extends to speech that may be inaccurate, exaggerated, false, and false. So that cannot be, it actually say that press cannot be restricted to only publishing what is publishing the proven true. So the case that he was charged with is no longer in the law books. So you find that the state is only acting out of panic. Maybe important to notice that Arnold told me that all his questioning was, where is Norman Tumuhimbise? So Norman Tumuhimbise happens to be the leader, the team leader of TikTok Media. So their interest is much is to get Norman to Imbise. So this one was used as a weak link to get Norman to Imbise. Because at some point they even asked him, he says, they asked him to trick Normani to Muhimbise so that he comes and he gets arrested. So that was the core reason why Arnold was arrested. He was remanded until 14th. I don't know, counsel will tell me. Is it a must that state prosecutors, state attorneys, states, they should object to the bail? Or because every time I say bail application, even with no reasoning, the state will say, no, we object. We object, really? I mean, what is, and then this thing of verification, really, I think the judicial has moved to digital. They have digitalized the EQMI, is it called? Yes. So, I think verification can happen in a minute. You know, the chairperson of the place where the person resides has a phone, a number, you call, verify. It's simple as that. But the state seems to make everything complicated and all that. I want to take you back to I want to leave the case of Arnold Mukose. I want to go back to the elections. We just concluded them. There are not so many cases of violation of journalist rights, I want to admit. There were about 5. Yes, there are many, but not as before. So, and most of them were about physical battling, physical beating, brutalizing, and then bruising the journalists. And there is a court ruling also on that. The Uganda Journalists Association, Henry Sekanjako, Timothy Murungi versus the Attorney General, UPDF, and 8 other officers. You all recall when Bobi Wine was taking a petition in 2021 to the then United Nations Human Rights Commission that was in Kololo, and journalists were beaten, seriously beaten. So we went and petitioned the court, and Justice Wamala ruled that battling journalists or any individual is actually criminal. But it still goes on, and it is business as usual. What we think is the major aim of this is to silence and suppress the independent journalism in the country. They want to take us away from reporting facts and truth to reporting what is in their interest. And this does not only stop at state or government, but also individuals. We have cases where individuals have been beating up journalists and all that. It is unfortunate that even with all this happening, where we ought to be running, we should be running, where we have to be running is the judiciary. But of recent, the judiciary is also turning into something else. I think it was last week, where it might be this week, last week. Last week in Kawempe, is it the magistrate court in Kawempe? The magistrate ruled that journalists should not step into her court, the courtroom with recording gadgets. They should just not. The reason was they misquote her. And then you wonder, if I misquote you with a recording, now what will it be without a reference? If I don't have where to refer to, where I can listen in, and then how will it be? But there's also a court ruling on that. That is the unfortunate thing. That courts undermine the higher courts, the lower courts undermine the higher court's rulings. There's a case of Uganda Court Reporters Association, WUCRA, versus, it was let me get my facts very clear. It was it was Uganda Court Reporters Association, WUKRA, versus, I think the magistrate then of Buganda Road Court was Lillian Buchana. She had ruled in the case of Poteri, a police officer. He was called Poteri. He was being charged with stealing the recordings of the then IGP, that is Kale Kaihura. And so the state then asked the magistrate that the media should not be part of the hearing, that the case should be heard in cameras. So WUKRA then got in touch with the current president of Uganda Law Society, that is Isaac Semakadde. And they filed a petition where they were protesting the orders. Justice Lydia Mugambe ordered the magistrate to retry Poteri in an open court, accessible to all journalists. The reason then was that, because the matter was security in nature, it was likely to cause disorder in police and cabinet leadership. That was the reason then the magistrate gave to chase away journalists in court. But thankful to Mr. Isaac Semakadde that he led an able team, and then we got the victory. So it was utter shock on my side to see Kanyanya magistrate chasing away journalists because they misquoted her. Simply because they misquoted her. And she was like, no recording, no further recording in my court. So all that is happening, at least as journalists and journalist bodies, we've tried our best to see that we bring an end to this. But what will you do if you do what you're supposed to do and the laws rule in your favor, but those that it has ruled against do not yield to them? They don't. What do you have to do? To keep speaking, maybe. It hurts me because all government institutions are turning their guns against journalists. I want to go to the Parliament just last year, no, this year actually, they stopped some media houses from accessing Parliament and covering parliamentary business, simply because they ran a story that was against the Speaker of Parliament. That was Nation Media Group. But before that, we also got a scenario where the media was locked into a room when they were passing some bill. Was it coffee? Or they were passing some bill and they locked the media into a room. They did their business. And when they were done with the business, they let the media out. So they choose even when the public should know the business that is happening in the house. So I think it is time. We all unite. It is time that we all unite and speak up, but not only speak up, act and fight for the press freedom, because press freedom affects all of us. Without a free press, we shall be living in darkness. So we request everyone to stand up, to fight for for the rule of law in this country, and we also request the security agencies not to behave in a criminal like criminals. not to behave like criminals, to do their job and be their law officers, to be, law-keeping officers. They should do their work following what the law states, rather than their needs and the directives they get from the superiors. You know what is funny with citizen journalism, as I end, the citizen journalism where just yesterday, I saw Male Mabirizi being charged with broadcasting without a license under the UCC Act on his personal page. On his personal TikTok page, he's charged with broadcasting without a license. When did we get to that, really? So, if you sit back and say, no, it concerns Male Mabirizi, tomorrow it will be you. Tomorrow it will be you. It is not going to be Male Mabirizi. Today it is Male Mabirizi, but once he is convicted, it is going to set a precedent, meaning that tomorrow you're going to be taken. And you'll be another Male Mabirizi at that. So, please, we need to have cohesion, we need to work together, we need to fight for free press and independent press. Without it, the country is doomed. As I end, on 3rd May, we shall be having the World Press Freedom Day and we shall be commemorating it. So I want to extend the Uganda Journalists Association's invite to you all. Among the activities is an exciting activity of where we have sports, we unite, we speak, we enjoy, away from the lamentations we get all through our journey as we practice. I want to thank you and wish you a Holy Week and a happy Easter.
Thank you so much for those very kind words of wisdom from Mr. Ronald Kabuye, who is the PRO and spokesperson of the Uganda Journalists Association, and he has left us with very many words and words of wisdom to reflect upon. We have come to the close and end tail of this work that we have been doing today. We would like to thank you so much for standing with us, for joining us, especially those that are online with us. Of course, we know it's been a stretch, but you know that being here is equally important because we are enabling access to justice. So it is a mandate, it's an obligation. We are proud of what we do, and we continue to say that we're going to continue to do that. And as long as we are under the leadership of the Radical New Bar Governing Council, who, as we speak of right now, has been represented again by the governor. We've had 3 categories of different individuals representing the Governing Council, and right now we are talking about the money bags, the governor of the Uganda Law Society, who has joined us, because like I said, each of them have different schedules and they are all aware of what is going on. So whenever they come in, we have to of course recognize them and thank them for making time for joining us. We are going to very fast run into a picture moment of those that have joined us, so as we can welcome the governor to give us closing remarks before I can as well just recap what has been transpiring through the past few hours, because we don't have so much time, especially the panelists who have just been here. Each of them, it's a busy day, I must say. For all of us, I want to imagine nobody is availably ready with time, but what happens is you have to make sure you prioritize. So we're going to request the panelists to come up, who are going to be joined by the governor, to take a picture over here for records purposes. Then we can conclude the day with closing remarks from the governor of the Uganda Law Society. Ladies and gentlemen, please, just a minute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. Yes, my name is Isiko Arthur, the Treasurer of Uganda Law Society. I bring greetings from the Radical Nuba President, Isaac Chimaze Semakade, and of course the entire Council. As the Council, we are so grateful to our panelists, especially those who have traveled a very long distance from Mbale. We normally go to Mbale, it is quite a distance. I imagine what time you started the journey. Must have been so long, but we thank you on behalf of Council. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate your insights and the wisdom that you have given out to the entire public. We pray that you continue that way. Even next time when we send you an invitation, kindly come in and we have a discussion. And also to the other panelists, we really thank you so much. Who, especially my brother here that I phoned the sub-meeting, Ronald, on the issues of journalists. Journalists, you know, are the most affected when it comes to following up on whatever happens in the entire country. They're always on rallies, they're always in so many engagements, and they are sometimes in the crossfire. Sometimes they are imprisoned for probably airing out something as it happens. So we, as Uganda Law Society, we stand with you journalists. We stand with you journalists, and we even accept the invitation. We shall be there, and we shall partake in whatever you are really organizing for us as an entity. To the lawyers out there and to our members who are here physically, we thank you so much. We don't take your time for granted. Thank you for sparing physically your time to be with us here. To those who are online, we also thank you and we appreciate you for always following our RNB live sessions. We came up with RNB because we always need to keep on track with whatever happens in the country. As those who have been following, you had the statement made by our Vice President, Mr. Anthony Asimwe. There are so many pertinent issues that are happening in the country, and we feel as the Radical Nuba, we should always follow them up and ensure that at the end of the day, rule of law prevails. And that is why we are really perturbed by the charges that are being put against so many, should I call them government critics? Especially one of the lawyers, Malema Bilizi. Now another charge has been brought, and he has talked about it, airing something. You record yourself and then you air it out. People are going to get worried. I've been seeing some of my friends who are lawyers who probably record themselves about a certain legal aspect, and they are probably educating the masses. Or they are saying, okay, anytime a lawyer can raise, or any person in the public can raise, listen in, and from their own time of convenience or place, and they follow whatever is happening. Now everyone is worried. The entire country is worried. Even as the Radical Nuba, people might start inquiring, do we have a license with whatever we are doing? Those are things that we really need to, and we are going to come up with the legal proceedings against whatever is happening. We shouldn't leave this unchecked, and that is why through our section 3, paragraph D and C, yes, we have a duty, we have an obligation to the entire public to ensure that at the end of the day, we advise the government on all matters that are ancillary and incidental to the law. And this is one of the issues, among very many others. So on that note, we are putting government on notice that we shall bring this to the courts of law. Once again, I'll end by continuing to thank all our members, the panelists. Thank you so much for coming up and being part of this historical moment. Thank you.
The money bags have spoken. By the way, Governor means treasurer of the Uganda Law Society. We don't want to be misinterpreted the way Ronald Kavuye said it often happens. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the tail end and the closure of this function for today. We, as the Uganda Law Society, are super excited about your presence and your engagements. We are very grateful that you made time. We are going to easily go into a very celebrative mood as we come together and go into Easter. It has been a very long 40 days. We want to commemorate those that walked the journey with Christ Jesus in the 40 days of fasting. It's not something to be taken lightly. As we are aware, we're a Christian-founded nation, but of course, as inclusivity would require, we also had Muslim brothers and sisters who were participating in Ramadan. It was a very lovely week we had, rather time and month we had. We also hosted an iftar dinner in which Sheikh Arthur Isiko was among us, the people that helped us to enjoy the meal. He was ably saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and we want to send our love to the Muslim brothers and sisters. And this time round, it is our turn to enjoy as well as celebrate Easter. We want to invite all our Muslim brothers and sisters. The way you invited us for Easter, we are also returning the favor. Kindly reach out to your brother and sister out there who is a Christian. Call him or her for that dinner of Easter as we celebrate the rise of Christ Jesus as the kingdom of the Lord is expanded. We'd like to thank all the people that have joined us. We got messages from one Nabatanzi, Gloria, who thanked us very much for the awareness of the Autism Day. Thank you so much, Gloria, for reaching out to us. We got Mohammed Kalyango. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. We also appreciate the gratitude you've sent out to us. We want to, yes, there's another from Okol Emmanuel who says we should continue to espouse the masses about the child living with autism. That is a very important call, as we have all realized. We have one called Raphael Otieno, who is appreciating the team from Bale. I don't know if that is somebody from Bale. Thank you so much, saying thank you for making the journey. We thank you so much also. Of course, we cannot take it for granted, and would like to use this opportunity to welcome you again next year. But even if it's not necessarily next year, feel free to engage the Uganda Law Society in as far as your project is concerned. If you need any further awareness, if you need any further assistance, and also legal representation for the vulnerable communities that are suffering from the effects of climate change, you can be sure that the Uganda Law Society, through the Radical Nuba leadership, will be at your doorstep. We also want to make a few announcements. House cleaning, the Lawyers League began last weekend, and we are still inviting the lawyers to participate with us. Come and have some fun, as we have been invited for the World Press Day, World Press Freedom Day on the 3rd of May by the Uganda Journalists Association. There's going to be a sports gala. We are also welcoming the lawyers to come and do some exercise, because we are going to play against the journalists. And this time round, we shall not have any actions, any microphones. There will be no pens, there will be no lawyers. We shall just be sportsmen. So please welcome to the Uganda Lawyers League, rather the ULS Lawyers League, that is going to resume on the 12th of April. We also want to continue to thank you, the individuals that have helped us commemorate the days that we have all spoken about in here, and we want to continue to pray that the Lord will guide you, especially as you return. Journey mercies upon you. May the Lord cover your vehicles. May the Lord clear the journey for you, and the roads shall be clear, and you reach safe and enjoy the period of holiday with your families. We also want to thank the governing council, now of course through the treasurer who is here, for the announcement that has been brought forth to the members of the public, and would like to pray that whatever that we have begun, especially in as far as pursuing legal procedures is concerned, it will be covered by the precious blood of Jesus, and that we shall have normalcy in the country. We also want to, of course, announce the demise of the mother to our head of department, Miss Afra Apio, which occurred last week. This week, it occurred this week. We would like to, of course, pray that the Lord will continue to hold her hand. A message has gone out through the Department of Communications to all the members through their emails. We would like to ask that you hold yourselves together and pray for Miss Apio Afra and the bereaved family. She is the head of Department of Rule of Law under where I serve. She is my superior, and in any case, those are the people who are behind the scenes in as far as organizing this particular press and public engagement is concerned. Of course, not leaving the other staff members, the Department of Communications headed by Adam Nwamanya, as well as Stella Nanozi, as well as the General Secretariat. There is no necessarily pointing any fingers into who helps to do this, but of course, particularly under the Rule of Law Department, one of our members deserves prayers, especially as we go into the Easter period in which we should have been having fun. The burial details and anything else about that particular aspect are communicated on the different platforms, especially on email. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to close this session. I remain Robert Benon Jirua, who has been your moderator and your host. It has been a lovely time with you. May the Lord bless you as we get into Easter, and happy Easter to us all, for God and my country.